We will talk in English tonight with our international programmers team. I'm Sascha Keilholz, and I would like to introduce you my team and the people you're seeing right now. First of all, Cécile Tollu-Polonowski, who was a producer for Match Factory for quite a while and is an editor of Revolver, Zeitschrift für Film. And I think was also a member of the board of the Berlinale Forum for quite some years. Yes. So lots of experience from different areas. And I'm very glad to have you here with us and with the team. The same for Violeta, who's here with us, I think, tonight from Barcelona. Is that right?
That's right.
She's working, she's an editor for SITGES, one of the most important genre film festivals in the world. She's a scholar as well, a film critic. Also lots of experience in the business, and very great to have you in the team. From my perspective, but I think it's depending on the computer. The next one is Alfred. I had the Saskia Walker joined us. Hello, Saskia. Good to have you with us. Is Alfred Stumm, based in Berlin, and I had the ability to be part of a book about Fritz Lang Alfred published. I was an author there, and Alfred has a PhD, I think. No, we're not at the university. However, Violeta also does have a PhD. That's not the point. What I wanted to say is, you know, he has graduated in literature and is very interested in narrative texts, and also brings a very interesting perspective to look at film at the border, you know, of being a text. And then we have Frédéric, who is very familiar for lots of you as the editor-in-chief of the film magazine Kritik.de, and who headed the Berlin Critics Week for many years, and who's also, I don't know what's the exact term, let me see that I phrase it correctly. Let's say you are the head of the Critics Film Association. It's probably not correct. It's member of the board or chief of the board or something like that. Mm-hmm. Daniela Persico from Italy, who also works for the Locarno Film Festival, can't be with us tonight, unfortunately. She's part of the team. She feels ill and is at home, sends her greetings. And she, as well as many of you, are also directors. So we have the, let's say, critical focus on film as well as a practical focus. And for all of us, it was a special year, of course. And I want us to talk about the process of putting together a program in this special year. As I remember correctly, it was the festival year started for us last autumn. We went to festivals. I remember Frédéric went to Locarno and St. Petersburg and Toronto. And then at the beginning of the year, Violeta, you went to Rotterdam, and Daniela went to Trieste, and then all of us met at the Berlinale. And actually, we didn't know that then it was the last time that we all came together because of the drastic changes afterwards. So I would like to ask you individually, you know, how was this year compared with others for you in putting together a program for a festival? Who wants to start? Maybe we start with you, Violeta, because as I said, you know, the year started regularly for you. You watched films from Sundance and then went to Rotterdam and to Berlin, and then suddenly, you know, things became quite different.
Yeah, I think that, well, as you said, it's very different to watch films in a festival. And actually, the year started very well, I think, in Rotterdam. And then also Berlin was quite a good year regarding films. Also thinking about from the perspective of someone in Spain that watches the films there, with the idea to program there or them in another festival here. And everything changed. It's true that I think it's the same for all of us, that we've watched almost all the films now in Vimeo or another platform. So everything online. And yeah, I think it's quite different because of two things. First of all, it's not the same to watch a movie through the computer. I think it's not better or worse, it's just different. And then the other thing is that I'm quite sure that the films we are watching this year, they're not exactly the same that were supposed to be. If, for instance, Cannes would have been possible to happen. So I think the films are different, but also I think that in a way it's a good year to, I don't know, maybe to focus on smaller films sometimes, or more independent films that perhaps wouldn't have the so many chances, or wouldn't be that important in a normal year, I would say. I'm thinking, for instance, in a film that it's in Mannheim and was in San Sebastian, which is Beginning. And I think it is an important film. And also this weird year is making it even more important than perhaps a regular year with, I don't know, stars or big names in a program like San Sebastian.
Well, it's impossible to project what the year could have been like. But I mean, this is the kind of thing that the festival calendar is a lot about expectations and how they're being built up. And when we started in February and met for the first time, we were full of expectations of what could come after. And many of us would have met again at the latest in Cannes, and we would have seen a different program there for many titles that we know were postponed to the next year. So we have some ideas of the films that were not projected this year. And like you said, Violeta, I think it has consequences that are good and bad in this case, because it actually, because some people with, let's say, more expectations built up on their commercial returns or on their prospects in cinemas might have postponed their films. And it actually opened up a space for films that otherwise would have not had this recognition or this spotlight. Personally, I believe that the Venice Film Festival would probably, in another year without the pandemic, not have shown as much female talent, even if they would never acknowledge this. But looking at their track record, and I know there was a lot of pressure on them, but I think this also happened because some of the festival regulars were not there to be cast. But Cécile has maybe some different opinions.
And yeah, you know, we can discuss that. Just to mention something, since Violeta mentioned Beginning, and it is one of, we have two films, I think we can already say are two of the festival films of the year. One is This Is Not a Burial, it's a Resurrection, which started already last year. It's international run, and that's why we have it out of competition. And Beginning is one of the most recent titles, which I guess premiered in Toronto and then had a really big triumph in San Sebastian. And now this is a big news now here. I think will have its German premiere with us. We had it in our selection. Now we can also show it online, which is really, really important for us. So the thing is, when you talked about Cannes, I think for the ones listening to us, usually after the European film market and the Berlinale we just talked about, then the next big meeting place for the business is in Cannes in May, which was postponed this year. And as Violeta and Frédéric referred to, had quite a different program than this year. They made a selection. It was like everything was on hold for quite some time, because films were expecting to be in the selection or not. Everybody waited for Cannes, and then the selection came, and then the Marché du Cannes, the next big market, started in June, which is usually in May. And I think until then, nobody really knew what kind of festival year this would be. And for me, the year really, got a kick then with a market, and then things followed up. But I don't know, Cécile, how have you experienced this? You've been to Cannes many times, and what did you think of the selection and the process of putting together a program from then on?
Yeah, I was expecting to travel to Cannes, but for me it's funny because what you're saying, that for you it kicked, it was a kickoff for the selection process. I think that I had been watching so many films before Cannes.
Yeah, not for the process, that's wrong, not for the process. Just, for the quantity of films then coming. Of course, our progress was there from January on.
No, I think that from after the Berlinale, I had already a lot of films to watch. I mean, I was not supposed to travel so much for the selection. I would have traveled for production matters to festivals. So for me, it didn't change so much. I mean, I would have seen the films online. But yeah, Cannes didn't change a thing because I had a lot to watch already on the platform. So it was the same. Yeah. And I was not expecting to see the big titles from Cannes anyways on the platform that we were using. So I saw them there, which I was very happy about, but otherwise I think I would have watched more the submissions that we had, more than the scouting.
And I think what Frédéric just said, the submissions we had, it was quite a great selection. And as you said, maybe there was more space for these films to be discovered. And yeah, Alfred, how was this process for you?
So I cannot compare it with so many other experiences, but I mean, the big difference was that we had no opportunity to meet, to talk to each other, which has a certain, dynamic, and this could not happen, unfortunately. But I already talked to Cécile in advance, so we were, using this platform where we had to judge the movies, so to speak, and talk about those movies. And we had developed a certain kind of conversation via this platform, which was also in a kind of beautiful and nice, and yeah, was very unique and special for this year. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was a year for us to really discover films. It made space for films. What are there special things you were surprised of? Not the titles. Let's talk about the films later. But are there special moods or countries or tendencies you've seen within the films we've watched?
Well, I was surprised to see so many Iranian films, like first features that were so strong already. I mean, I think we had like 20 or 30 Iranian first features, and this was not clear to me, that their industry allows so many films to appear and to be directed, and with very, very strong approaches and very strong directing talents already.
Yeah, I mean, we all know about the political situation in Iran, and we also know that Iran has a strong tradition in cinema, at least for the last 30 years or something. And I was also surprised by the diversity of the cinematography and so on, and the strength of the movies. Yeah, it was great.
I actually programmed two film series about recent Iranian films in Berlin. That's why I already had a lot of contact with new films in the recent years, and it's really something that's extraordinary. Is for one, they have a very dramatic approach, I would say, in a way that they produce a lot of films with very small budgets, but they produce a lot of films that are extremely well scripted. in a way that you really already have a substance of dramatic narration that is there in first features that you would not expect. And then oftentimes it's quite riveting what they talk about and how they talk about questions of society in ways that are surprising because, of course, they cannot talk about them maybe more directly. We had one case, we can't, or we won't name the name, but we actually had a film that we really wanted to show that was very strong about the question of how to find a new perspective on I don't know how much details I can say, but we had a film that we really would have liked to show from Iran as well, and we could have shown more than one, and one of them was not able to screen because of censorship. I think that's as much as we can say about this process. That it's still a great dance, to put it euphemistically, for which films from Iran are actually able to travel abroad.
Yeah. But talking about this movie, not the title, brings me to the other, strong element of this year, and this is what's also surprising in a way to me was the big amount of feministic movies in a broad sense, which we also have now in the program. The program shows this in a way, I think. And what I found so surprising is not that those movies were, ideologically, for me, on the right side, but that they were aesthetically so strong at the same time. And this was, for me, a surprise. Yeah.
Cécile, you smiled. Maybe you want to say something.
I'm just happy that
Violeta,
it's going
talk
that way.
about feministic movies. You should.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think that it's like this in the program here in Mannheim. But maybe, and that's a good sign for the festival that it's not only a thing that's happening within the festival, but it's also something that it's everywhere in cinema. I think that. For instance, thinking about some of the films that were screened in Sitges, which is a horror and fantasy film festival, this was also a topic, and it's interesting how it's not only something that's going on regarding female filmmakers, but it's getting somewhere else. So I think it's quite interesting that. Yeah. Also, if I might say that something that I found, it's like some kind of seriousness, I would say, that like a lot of films that very serious proposals because of the topics they are approaching, but also in the mise en scène, if you want to put it this way. And that's why I think that also some of the films that we found that were kind of funny were especially, bright, because it's not that easy to find some kind of humor these days. And it's not only now with the pandemic going on, but it's true that sometimes comedy in film, and especially if it's kind of, more independent films. It's not that common. So I kind of liked when there were some of the films that actually had this humor, or even if it's with irony or kind of weird view, but I think it's interesting. I'm thinking, for instance, I know that we will talk about titles later, but I'm thinking about a film like You Know Him, that it is also it's critical, but it's also funny, and that was I think interesting as well.
Yeah, in a way, it's a satire, and it's quite close to a thriller in a way, but it has these elements of comic relief and of caricature, and And I think many films that are not per se comedies have these lighter touches. I think we have quite a few in the selection that would be weird to call them comedies, but they really feel funny. I mean, like a film like Enorme is maybe the most obviously a comedy, but it's not in the end. This film by Sophie Le Tourneur that we're showing in Pushing the Boundaries is actually boundary pushing in the way it's told, and it starts with a comedy, and in the end it's like a kind of naturalistic constellation that goes well beyond the structure of the slapstick comedy that it is at some points in the film as well. And I think we have quite a few of those films that are not that are funny, but don't work only according to the codes of the comedy.
Yeah, when you talk about the seriousness, because I wanted to clarify two things we talked about earlier. First of all, Cécile, you said, of course, you watched films from all over the year, you know, so submissions, and I just wanted to point out that basically there are three formats to watch films: the markets, the festivals, and then the submissions. And of course, the big change was regarding the markets and the festivals, not the submissions. So what I wanted to say is that the festival, you know, the festival circuit kind of kicked off with the Cannes market, the festival films. And I said, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's interesting what yourself and Frédéric said, that it kind of made space, because there are these this very prestigious, high-profile films. Some of them were kind of detained, you know, or postponed, and that really, you know, gave a perspective on some other cinema. And I would agree that there are lots of films we watched, also submissions, films that are not in our program right now, that had this very serious attitude and a very clear attitude and position towards its characters and its topics. And I think that was quite interesting. And I really, you know, from my heart think that it's a great year for cinema. Even, you know, if there are not many of the so-called big names kind of didn't show up, didn't happen, but really this gave a perspective on some things, you know, that were not on the map before. And for our program on, you know, in the competition on the Rise, it wasn't planned to have 11 debuts. And we were quite astonished to see how many first feature filmmakers, you know, had this great approach and these great films.
The competition could be open to first, second, and third features, actually, for those who might not know it. And we decided to select 11 first features, which is the biggest part, of course, of these 14 titles that we're showing, of which 12 are showing online right now. And the 13th title will be added very soon, which is Beginning, and of which we only cannot show online The Disciple, which is a film that was bought by a streaming service, and that we will have the opportunity of showing in the cinemas when cinemas reopen, probably in December or January. And it's really a film that that makes most sense to see on the big screen. This is what we would have wished for all the films, of course, because the experience is so much a different experience. But we're happy to be able to at least have the opportunity to share what we watched all this time, to share it in this way, even if it's not the same that we were envisioning.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we won't talk too much about, don't want to talk too much about the competition in ways of recommending films, because obviously that's up to you and up to the juries, and we love all of these films, that's why we selected them. I just wanted to point out, for us, this section on the Rise is really about discovering talent. And I think this is what we talked a lot about this year, that it's not only that we really like the films, it's that we were astonished about the talent there, and, you know, the really, really different and very specific perspectives in these films, and and their free approach towards films. When I talked with Hannes yesterday, he said he just talked to Françoise Lebrun, and she said, the 70s French films were also so open because they weren't that standardized, because the TV wasn't that important back then. And I think we discovered many films that have this really free approach to their narratives and to their characters, and that's great to see. So I think On the Rise is really about talent to be discovered.
This is one of the reasons why we selected The Death of Cinema and My Father Too as the opening film, because it's this kind of narrative experiment that is at the same time very heartfelt, and it has a father-son relationship in the middle, and at the same time it's testing the boundaries of how you can put together a narrative film, actually, and working with found footage or documentary material, and in a way having fun with the spectators, so that you don't always know where you actually are. And I think this kind of improvisationary vibe that you see that something is happening in whilst making is something that's quite strong in the selection. That's the fun with the material that you can see in a film like My Mexican Bretzel, but also in a film like Come Closer at the Sieb Center. You can feel while watching the film that something is happening while the camera is filming. So it's not only about planning and meticulously drafting and writing and knowing before what the film will be, but it's also about discovering for the filmmakers themselves as they make the films, they're discovering part of the world. So I think that's a particularly fun thing to follow.
And then there's a question, if we fought over films, how much we discussed and which ones. Of course, we won't say which ones, finally made it to the program, or which ones we selected not to show. The thing is, we really could have shown more films. As I said, it was a really great year, and it was tough to select this program. Of course, we had lots of discussions, because I think really regarding to what we just said, we had really different perspectives. And I think what we discussed most is just this point I mentioned. Where's the talent? Not do I like this film, or is this a great film, but where do we see the talent? I think that's what we discussed a lot. And then if it comes to being a programming team, of course, I guess the discussion is, how will the program be shaped altogether? So it's not about one peculiar film, but it's more about, what do we want to present as well? How is the bigger scope? And of course, then someone has a position. I think we need this kind of film is missing, or maybe there's a genre missing, or there's, some presentation of gender missing, or there's a country missing. I think there are different perspectives coming in then, and that's the interesting thing in shaping the program, I think. Yeah.
Perhaps sometimes it was regarding the talent factor. It was perhaps sometimes also perhaps under discussion. Do you see the talent, and then on the other side, is this film as a whole convincing? And sometimes you could see talent, but the film as a whole was perhaps not totally convincing for us, and so there was perhaps sometimes some discussion about balancing out those two factors.
But when you already say the quality of the film as a whole, and I think already this is something to be discussed, because some of us would maybe have the perspective to say it's not about the film as a whole, but it's about moments, it's about moods. So already this is a different perspective. Yeah. If someone says, well, we have to show this film because of this sequence also, this could also be a perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, we discussed a lot, but you know, not in a way. We have to have this film or that film. I think it's really, there was quite a lot to talk about these astonishing films. And when Frédéric just talked about the opening film, maybe Cécile, you can say something about the closing film, À l'abordage. So I think you watched it as the first of us, and you're very familiar with the director, and maybe you can say something about the film. This is the film we agreed on very quickly, and maybe there's something you can talk about.
Yeah, I'm completely in love with this film since the very beginning. I watched it twice already. I'm very familiar with his work. He made a not very famous, but a successful middle-length film that had a release also in cinemas in France. And quite from the very beginning, all the critics were saying that he was quoting Romer and Rosier. And more than quoting, I think he's giving an homage to them, but he has also his handwriting. So À l'abordage, it's a very charming film that I after seeing it for 3 days, I was still mesmerized by it. It's a summer film, it's an ensemble film. So he made it with a class of actors, and they all have their fragilities. It's a story of young people at a camping site. They are arguing, falling in love or not, and exchanging with each other. And it's very Marivaux, very theater-like, but it works perfectly. And it's really brilliant directing and funny. Also, it's a light comedy. It's romantic, but not naive. So it's a gem.
Yeah. But what I found great about it is especially the colors, you know, how he creates each picture with the colors. So that was great for me. So, yeah.
It was also a big surprise for me in the film. And, you know, going backwards to the question we had earlier, the thing is not only discussing the films, but of course, you know, suggesting films to each other. You know, you must see this and watch this, and you can look forward to see this. It's a great fun, you know, being part of this committee. There was a question about if we, let me read it out properly, if we had any self-produced films in consideration, or if they were all backed up by proper funding distribution. I think that's an interesting question. You know, regarding.
I don't think we know it necessarily for all of them, because we actually watched them without, you know, looking at the credits or the distributor standing behind it. I'm pretty sure that Shithouse is a film that was self-produced or produced in a very small way. I mean, what exactly the context is, I don't know, but it's a film by the director who acts himself and who produced it also, and so it's a very small entity for sure. I believe that My Mexican Pretzel also is a very small production, but maybe Violeta knows more about the case of My Mexican Pretzel.
Yes, it is. Well, it's done almost with nothing, I would say. Yeah, though it's quite treated. I mean, it works with the found footage idea, but then all the work with the sound, for instance, and some effects in this way, in the sense, it's quite interesting and I would say very clever. But yes, it's a very small production.
Mm. And the production also, Der 17. by Sascha Keilholz and Ralf Walker, is also a project that they initiated in a way where they had the possibility to really craft it in their autonomous way, I think. So I think that sometimes this thinking of going out of the usual ways of producing a film is something that is exactly right for certain projects, you know. So it's not so much about are these films better or worse. I think it's just a choice that some filmmakers also make because it really helps them to craft a specific kind of film.
But I think it's important to stress out what you just said, that for us, this is what we said earlier. Of course, if one goes to a big festival like Cannes, and at least in the competition, one knows most of the names, and probably the producer also. But that's the interesting thing this year. That really, this, especially for this year and for us as a festival and a team, it's really not about where the films come from. It's not, that we have our favorite distributors or producers and, what's your latest film. It was really the variety of films this year that was astonishing and great for us to see. And then maybe, afterwards, My Mexican Bachelor is a great example, because, the film as itself is a mystery. And one, all the time watching the film, one wonders, how is it produced, and what is, what's documentary and what's found footage and what's produced and so on. And, in the end, it doesn't matter, because it's a film that really works for itself. And I think this is really great about the program this year, that these very autonomous films that speak for themselves. We have another question. Will we consider short films or a short film competition in the upcoming editions? Well, for us, I think it's important to specialize, and us talking, to listen to us talking here. You can see it's all about the talents and the young filmmakers and discovering them. So, and it's kind of important for us to specialize. And I think we started with saying we want to specialize on feature films, on first to third feature films, theatrical films, fictional films. And, this is where we start from. And I think that's important. To say this is how what we specialize on. On the other hand, when we say we want to discover talents, of course there are talents to discover within short films. We have the talent camp, the cutting edge talent camp, where students from film schools have a program, and this is a place where we find talent. And I think short films could be a place as well. We have to see, maybe next year, if there's a big theatrical festival for our 70th anniversary, maybe that's a good time to show some short films. Let's see.
And we're actually showing some short films right now on our platform. We have, like Sascha just said, we have a specialization, but then we're also open for showing something else. So we have this, we show feature films, but then we also show a documentary film by Frédéric Jaeger, and we show as part of the opening, and you can see it on the platform. We're showing a short film by Sophia Gröning and Jan Bonny, and we have in the section Facing New Challenges, which is now also included in the in its biggest parts are included on the platform Expanded. You can screen their short films that are meant to be screened in a gallery context. So of course it's again an adaptation for the moment being, but you have opportunities of watching short films in our program, and it's also a big question of how to organize short film selection, because there are already so many films to watch for feature films. There are even more films to watch for short films.
Yeah, and yeah, we of course, we have this Facing New Challenges, the section where there are short and shorter films now one can see. Tomorrow we will talk with Sophia Gröning and Jan Bonny about this short film Frédéric just mentioned. And there's another question regarding how to vote for the Audience Award. One can do that. Actually, it's with once you rent the film, there's a space with 5 stars and one can vote. I don't know if it should be easy to find. I'm not sure if I'm saying something wrong.
I mean, in the internet, everything is easy to find and hard to find at the same time. So no, in a way, you know, everything is everywhere. So I understand the question. Actually, if you go on an individual film page on the platform Expanded, there you will find a link to the voting possibilities, and you have to enter then the email address with which you rented the film, so that we can make sure that you actually did, and then you can register your vote, and you can do so until the 19th in the evening, so that we have time to count and to ask the winner for a virtual thank you for the award ceremony that takes place on the 22nd, and that will be broadcasted on the 22nd at 11 a.m. And I think you can see the URL in our chat right now, where you can click on to actually do the voting. Maybe it's time now to go on to present some favorites of each of us, not in the competition because we don't want to play favorites there, but I know that everybody has some films that are really discoveries, or films that you really fought for, that you were really invested with, and I think it's nice to share a small insight into this. Into your personal stakes.
Personal recommendations. Violeta, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. First of all, I will recommend Funny Delivered. You started asking me how was the programming, considering that I went to Rotterdam first and then I had to see almost everything at home. This is one of the films that I saw in Rotterdam, and I think I knew a bit about the filmmaker Thomas Clay, but I have to say that it's a film that surprised me quite a lot. It's a period film. It's set in the 17th century, in the countryside in England, and there's a family there, and the atmosphere starts to be weird and weirder because of two things. First of all is that a couple naked arrived to the place, and second of all, it's because of the way the filmmaker shots everything. I think it's amazing. The atmosphere, it's something really, really, really amazing. The way he's shooting, for instance, the fog, the landscape, and how the film is more and more claustrophobic, even if it's in an open space. But then also the house is quite an important element. And actually, something that I really liked about this film is that we could say it's a drama, but at the same time, it's playing a lot with the codes of what we could call a home invasion film, so a kind of horror film. And I think this is a very clever move from the filmmaker. And then one last thing, it's I have to say that I'm not very fan of say things like this talking about the actors as the main element for a good film, but here there are like the actors are amazing. I would say only two names, which are more or less would say two of the main characters. One is Maxine Peake, and the other one is Charles Dance, a very known actor, and they are very, very good. Also, this is a film that we could say that it has to do with what we were talking about earlier, which is that it has quite a feminist approach, and in a very interesting way as well.
Okay, we have
dass sie den Film gerade gesehen hat und sehr gut fand. Das freut mich. Es gab gerade noch eine sehr smarte Frage, die wir uns natürlich auch selbst stellen. Wo wir denn die Linie, sorry, now I just switched into German because I read the commentary in German. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
Somebody just said it. She has just seen the film and liked it, considering Funny Lie Delivered. And then somebody else asked, where do we draw the line between fiction and non-fiction? Because I just, said we focus on feature films. Well, of course, this is something we could have a longer discussion about. But as you see, we have a film, we just talked about My Mexican Brezel in the program. I think it's important to be open-minded, and the festival as a whole has lots of places to show different films. That's why we have Facing New Challenges, as we said. We have kind of art installation films there, short and middle-length films. And as Frédéric mentioned, we invited the new Frédéric Wiseman film as a special because it's just such an important film. And then there are films like My Mexican Brezel, which play on being a mockumentary or documentary or essay film or not. I think this is important to be open towards, and to say, let's see how the director plays with the media. I think what we don't want is, it's regarding fictional and non-fictional film, it's that we are not looking for topical films. We don't want to say we have a documentary competition with films. This one is dealing with that topic and so on. But in general, if there is an interesting film, there's always a place to show it, I think.
I mean, it's the big question of specialization, because there are really a lot of great festivals for documentaries, and many of them are right around the corner. It's actually, I think it's more part of this that we starting also to know where to put what. It was like a limitation that helps to actually shape a program. But indeed, I think this question of where do we set the limit, I think everything that's at the limit is particularly interesting. So it's actually not the films that are at the border of documentary and fictional films that we would exclude, but films that are actually not looking for the borders.
Yeah. I think that's a good explanation, yeah. But Violeta, you weren't finished. Sorry, I kind of interrupted.
No, it's fine like this.
I just saw, the direct link to Funny Lie Delivered.
Yeah, well,
but you brought another film from Rotterdam. Actually, you brought the first two films to our program.
Actually, can I say something about the documentary fiction thing?
Yeah, please.
if it's okay. I think also that nowadays it's the line between documentary and fiction, and it's every time more and more blurred. So it's not that easy. I mean, films like My Mexican Brezel that you were talking about, it's quite common now to find films that are playing with some documentary style or some documentary skills, and then working through fiction as well. So I think it's quite common now.
I think having chosen Death of Cinema and My Father Too as an opening film is kind of a confession that we're very aware, of this duplicity. That's one of these films, and I think what Frédéric said, there are specialized festivals on documentary films, and we are interested in films, that are kind of pushing the boundaries, as our second section is called, pushing the limits between fiction and non-fiction. And Mannheim-Heidelberg has a tradition with documentary films, and that's actually why we chose Death of Cinema and My Father Too, to kind of openly, this is kind of an invitation to openly discuss, as we just did. Yeah. Violeta, did you want to say something about the second Rotterdam film?
Well, I would like to actually, I would like to recommend as well, as we were talking about these female approaches or feminist approaches. I would also recommend a film called High Tide, an Argentinian movie directed by Veronica Chen. And as I was saying about Fanny Delivered, it's kind of a home invasion film, and the space is quite important. I would say exactly the same about High Tide, though it's very contemporary at the same time. It's not a period film. It's contemporary. It's the place where it takes place. It's very, we would say, modern. It's a house that a rich woman has in the countryside in Argentina, and well, some people are working there, but they are also invading her house. Something that I really liked about this film is that I think it's quite complex the way it depicts. For one side, the feminist approach, but from another side, the classist side of, especially of the society in Argentina and everywhere, I would say. So these are like huge topics that the filmmaker manages to treat like in a very complex way. I mean, not like being simple, just saying this is the right thing and this is the wrong side of things. So it's not that easy to know who's the bad and who's the good person in this film. And I think that this is something quite interesting.
And the movie plays very skillfully with our expectations. So you know, regarding the characters in the movie, the different characters. Yeah. So you always watch yourself expecting something, and then it's going in a different direction. Yeah.
It's a very engaging film. Sorry. I was just saying that it's a very engaging film that for me is particularly hard to watch because I feel very I feel a lot of empathy, and in this case I wish things would happen differently. It's for me it's like watching a horror film, and in a way it has elements of the horror film where you want to scream at the protagonist to not let this happen. And of course it's probably more satire or in a way comedic drama. It's very, very special in the way it deals with genre, but it for sure has this element of going deep into anxieties.
Who wants next? Cécile?
Yeah, I can. I would like to talk about a film which is showing in the retrospective. I think it is a very underrated film, and I think it's also a film that was not so well known abroad. It's a cult film in France, like really mythical, because the main actor, Coluche, was a comedian, super famous, and there he was playing a character that is opposite to the one he was showing outside. So he's playing burnout alcoholic guy who works at a gas station. And it's a film noir. Coluche named Lambert. Lambert meets a young drifter guy who is a drug dealer, and it's the beginning of a friendship. And slowly Lambert will open his shelf. I don't want to betray so much of the story. It's a friendship film. It's a revenge film. It is very atmospherical. It is, I think nowadays a lot of filmmakers would like to make this film because it's super cool, but probably it wouldn't get through because the characters are very stereotypical and the dialogues they're so dated, but it's so well done, so it works, and the cast is amazing. Both main actors received Césars, and the film received 5 Césars all in all. And the cinematography, the lighting is perfect. It is a cool film about losers. And it's very, yeah, and I think no one knows this film apart from French people that see it every year on television because it's still very famous.
But now I have to say something. I actually didn't want to, but I talked with Hannes about the film yesterday, and Hannes and myself, we had exactly the same discussion you just opened up. Hannes kind of said, well, look at the dialogues and the characters and the background story. Isn't it kind of stereotypical?
Right about it.
It is, yeah. And
yeah.
The thing is, we talked about the retrospective and about all what these films in the 70s did, how complex the characters are, and how, as I said, this really free cinema with no stereotypes and so on. And of course, watching Chao Pantan after these is quite a step. But on the other hand, I don't know if you've seen the video by Tim Möck he sent us about Bruno Neuten, the director of photography of the film, and I think it kind of really is his film, and that's the magic of movies. It's really about the cadrage of every scene, and the lighting and the atmosphere, and this. I'm so fond of this film. When you said it's people watch it in France in the TV, it's really one of these films I've never heard of. And one night on the TV, I switched on and I saw this guy at the gas station. And everything was dark, and I was wondering what kind of movie this is. And then I followed on, and then I watched the film, and then I kind of rediscovered it over the years. And yeah, I'm very fond of the film, and I'm happy you like it as well.
I think stereotypical figures can work in a film noir. I think it can work. Yeah, and it's an 80s film, and it is outdated, but it is so cool. The music is amazing. There is a title song in the middle, and you just wonder why it's there. It is very, very retro, but very, very nice.
Alfred, do you want to go on?
Yeah, Cécile only recommended one movie so far, but should I go on?
No, well? I did. I recommended the.
Yes, at the beginning. Sorry. Yeah, I forgot.
Now it's like you're a bit like a talk show master at the ZDF. This has to be right. Everyone has to talk about 2 movies. It's okay. It's okay, Alfred. Relax.
Okay, then I try to relax and talk about This Is Not a Burial, but Resurrection. That was a movie which really surprised me. It's set in Lesotho, Southern Africa. It's about an old woman, experiencing the hardships of life in a very hardship here really means hard. So it's drastic experiences, and but what I liked about the movie is so it's on the one hand it is seems to be deeply rooted in African traditions, also in oral ways of narrating and so on, and it is also from where it takes place. It's set in an African context, but without being or using stereotypes or exotic stereotypes or something like this. In a way, it seems to be very real. And on the other hand, it is a movie which is really into the avant-garde tradition of cinematography, and so those 2 sides of the movie were really something which convinced me. What I really liked about it. And then what is really important to mention here is that it is so skillfully done in the way of how to construct or to structure to build up pictures, and that is really good. It's just a really beautiful, aesthetically beautiful movie where you could print some of the single colors on a canvas and hang it in a museum. So it's a great movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a film that plays also with like mystical elements and the tradition of of oral history, and at the same time with the singing and these kind of places that are so well crafted. It has also a meditative and also almost surreal quality to it.
Yeah, and its cinematography is so diverse. So the styles it's using is, from scene to scene, it uses different styles, but not ending up in falling apart, but being totally convincing. Then, as it works surprisingly well. Yeah.
Yes,
and
from
that
a
was
very
what,
small country, Lesotho, that you may not have heard often from, and it's their first ever proposal for the Academy Awards.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really great. For me, it was one of the movies where I was looking in the credits and I just wanted to see, is it really, it's the first or second movie of the director, is that right?
First feature.
First feature is unbelievable. So I couldn't believe it that this could be the first feature of this director. So that's really, in a way, a masterpiece. Yeah.
What's the second film you want to pitch?
Yeah, the second film is made by an old or a former guest of the IFFMH, Aung San Suu, The Woman Who Ran. That was one of the movies we saw already at the Berlinale. So when we could still go there in the cinemas and watch movies. And for me, it was one of the best movies I saw there. And it's about a woman, not really old, younger woman, leaving her home for the first time after 5 years of living together with her husband. So that's really the first. She says this in a scene in this movie that there was not a single day over the last 5 years she didn't spend with her husband. So, and now she just goes around visiting her friends of former times, and they are talking with each other. But it's already how the main character is introduced at the beginning is so great. It's so in a casualness, it has a kind of modernity that which is overwhelming. So the character. So first you see someone else that is obviously the friend she wants to visit. Then she arrives, doesn't find the door, goes, you see her from behind, and then this character who couldn't find her way is the main character of the movie, turns out to be the main character. And then she goes to this friend, talks to her, goes to the next one, and then there's a last scene. And in a way, the script is so great. So what people, you have really the feeling of listening to real people talking to each other. So it's was really great. And for me, it's also a masterpiece of staging social awkwardness. There are so many scenes where you see awkward situations, conflicts, but which are hidden by politeness. Then in those talks to her friends, they are full of allusions to things which happened in the past, but you don't know really what they are, but you feel that there is a certain tension in those scenes. And for us, as people who love movies and cinema, it's great to see that at the end, when she confronts a certain person, I don't want to say too much about this, and this ends. What helps is the movies, the cinemas. The cinema, and that is what leads to to relief for the main character. Yeah, so that's very nice about it, also for us as programmers.
I think also it's funny because we, well, I guess all of us that we are talking here now, that we have followed more or less the filmography of Hong Sang-soo, the filmmaker, and it's so funny and so rich to watch how he's changing in a very subtle way the universe he's depicting in his movies. And in this one, something that I really liked is that the importance that the animals have, not only because it has, I think, one of the best gags, comic gags in this season with a cat as the main character, but also the film starts with some chickens. The characters are discussing whether they should be vegetarian or not, eating meat and everything. So I mean, there's something there that it's kind of new in a Hong Sang-soo movie. And
yeah,
also,
they talk. Sorry for interrupting. They talk about the beauty of the eyes of whales and while eating meat.
Yeah.
So, and it's
so
subtle is.
But this is something new, and also there's some, as we were talking earlier about these female approaches. Hong Sang-soo has been always a filmmaker that has that talks about, especially about the female-male relationships, and but it has been more or less always, especially from a male point of view, perspective, we could say. And I think that his last films, and this one especially, the point of view or the perspective of the women is more and more important. And I think this is something it's beautiful, but at the same time, it's very funny because all the male characters in this film are so pathetic, I would say. And
I mean,
yeah, go on. Sorry, Alfred.
No problem. So I like that you like the movie. So that's the male characters are only causing problems. It's there's no other one. They only cause problems, and you only see them from behind. So that is really also in a way funny. So it has also comedy qualities. So but very subtle ones. Yeah.
No, woman is the future of man. I mean, he knew that very early on.
Yeah.
We're already a little bit over the projected time we wanted to take. I already pitched one of the films.
Do you hear properly right now, Frédéric?
Sorry?
I don't know. Do you hear Frédéric properly?
Yeah, there's a problem of sound.
Yeah.
It's a sound problem, yeah.
Yeah.
You have a problem with my sound? You cannot hear me?
We can hear you, but it's weird sound.
It's a bit shaky.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Maybe because of the earphones. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, then you have to talk.
Oh, we want to hear what you have to say.
No, it's good.
I think now it's working.
Much better.
Go on, yeah.
Is it better now or worse now?
No, it's better. It's good.
Okay.
Oh no.
Okay, I wanted to, because I already earlier talked briefly about the opening film, The Death of Cinema and My Father Too. I think it's one of the films you shouldn't miss in our lineup. Of course, if possible, you see all 30 something films, 40 now maybe. But I think what I really like about this opening film is that it has this wit. It has this kind of, it's a very dramatic film, and it's about dying, and it is about losing someone close to you, but it's all about cherishing life and about enjoying life and about the funny situations that you can be in, even if you're looking at the end of life and at the new beginnings. And I think this in such a very complex way, but it's a film that you can watch more than once. So use the 30 hours you have on the platform wisely. And I also wanted to mention a film from Mexico. We have a lot of films from South America this year. I think it's been a really strong year for Latin American cinema. And from Mexico, we have actually two films, and one of them is Fauna by Nicolas Pereira, which is a film that is at the same time very slow paced with a lot of long shots, and then it's a film that's really about narrative invention, and it's a situation comedy, really pulling out all the stops, about a son-in-law coming to visit the family for the first time, and the way he is introduced to the family already is the best way possible, and where the film takes you from there is something you can really not expect. And it's a film also in a way about what is the stereotypical male macho proposition of how to interact with other men and how to impress them. And it's also a film about inventing your own persona, and it's a lot about the drug cartels and how they're portrayed in films. In Narcos, especially, one of the main characters plays a silent role in Narcos in this series about mafia in Mexico, and it's I think a really funny proposition. Yeah, but there are many titles I'd like to put forward to you. So we might have the chance to do so right after this, when we meet on the platform Gather.
Yeah, I think let's come to an end. You know, yesterday we talked about the retrospective. Today, in general, not only, we talked about the second section, pushing the boundaries, with a programming team. The festival team also put together some recommendations for you regarding the competition on the Rise. You can see that during the next days on social media and also on our website. I think that's quite interesting to see. And tomorrow, as mentioned, we talk about Sophia Gröning's and Jan Bonny's project they made in Mannheim, they realized in Mannheim and Heidelberg. And right now, as Frédéric mentioned, you can join us. You could join us already here by asking questions and chatting, but now that we have a multimedia format, a bit 80s retro style Gather. When you found the Zoom link on our website under events, you will also find the link for gathering at Gather. And I think
maybe someone can post it here.
And you can post it here, yeah, that's probably the best. So if you don't need to watch a film right now or have something else to do on Friday night, join us there, discuss with us, follow up on what we just said. And it says the link is coming up. So thank you, Cécile, Violeta, Alfred, and Frédéric. It was fun talking to you. It was fun putting together, not only fun, of course we had discussions, but it was a lot of fun putting together the program, and I'm already looking forward, and our mind is already looking forward to the next year and the next program. And now we will enjoy the films the next days. As we mentioned, of course, we watched many of these films more than before online. And one always has the idea to present these films on the big screen. And I really hope we will have the chance to show some of the films we are presenting this year on the big screen where they belong, where the directors, imagined them to be. And I'm really looking forward to share our vision of cinema, and not ours, but the director's vision of cinema over the next years.